In this video, I want to look at our inside cut operation up here. So I'm going to right click my layer, select objects, come over to machining operations, 2-axis, and for the inside cuts we're going to use the profiling operation. Once again, you see our regions here. For a tool, I'm going to go back to our 1/4 inch cutter, and I'm going to use that to cut out these holes once again, because I want to try to get the best definition I can for the inside radius here. I'm going to select that tool again, go to feeds and speeds, load from tool, clearance plane I don't need to adjust. Under cut parameters, for the profiling pass, generally with a profiling it's going to be best if we have single closed curves. We want our curves to be joined, not grouped together, but joined together so that they form closed curves. We can cut individual lines with a profiling operation, but just like you see here in this example, on an open curve we can only cut either to one side of the line or the other, but on a closed curve we can use this feature down here to decide, if we select this box with closed curves, we can say, do we want to cut on the outside of these curves or on the inside? And in this case, we want to be on the inside. That's all we need to set in this tab, and we can move over to the next tab. Once again, for cut levels, I'm going to do pick top, enter in the thickness of my material. In this case we want to cut all the way through the material. So for our total depth I'm going to use 0.76. I'm actually going to go a little bit beyond the bottom of the material, just like we did with the drill bit. In this case though, I don't need to go as deep as I went with the drill bit because the tool that I'm using is flat. It doesn't have a pointed tip on it like the drill bit does. So if I just go a little bit below the bottom, I should get a pretty clean bottom edge. I'm just going to click down in the finish depth, and you'll see that the full total depth goes into the rough depth again. And once again, down in the rough depth per cut, we want to break this up into levels based on the tool radius. So I don't want to cut more than the radius at a time. I have a 1/4 inch tool, so my depth per cut is going to be 0.125, 1/8 of an inch. So it's going to take several passes to get through this 3/4 inch material. The next tab, entry exit, once again, this is a little bit different from the pocketing. Here we want to choose a long path, and that will give us the same diagram we saw in our pocketing. And once again we want to change the height here, which that H value is down here. We want to change it to 0.125 to match our cut level. We also, down here in the exit motion, you can see this shows you how it's going to exit. We don't want it to hook out like this. So what we'll do for an exit motion is click none, and that will just stop and lift straight up from a single point. And finally, down here in the bottom, just like with the pocketing, we want to check this box so that we use this entry motion at each of the levels. once again, we don't really need to worry about the advanced cut parameters or the sorting in this case. Except there is one thing that I can point out under advanced cut parameters. In here, these areas that we're cutting out are quite small. So there is a chance that as we cut out these shapes, that the leftover pieces become loose, start to vibrate, maybe get flung out of their spot here, and they come off the table or start causing problems. So one option that we have in the profiling operation under advanced cut parameters is to add some little bridges or tabs to at the very bottom of the part to hold on to the rest of the sheet and prevent those things from coming loose and getting in the way of the rest of the cutting that's going to happen. And that might be a good feature to add in this case because these parts are quite small. So if I down here, if I choose rectangular bridges, these can be very small, so the bridge height will be how tall it is, the thickness of it. And so I can use a very small number, like a 1/16 of an inch. And the length can be pretty small, probably just a 1/4 of an inch or so should be enough to hold onto that part and keep it from really coming loose. Down here we can set the number of bridges, and I would say that 2 would be a good starting point. Really this becomes sort of a judgment call and may change based on your material. So this is something where if you were going to do a lot of these, we would recommend and try to help you do a test to make sure that we get it right on the first one. And if we're cutting 100 of these parts, that we don't have to worry about parts eventually falling out as we get further into the cutting. So with that set, I'm going to just click generate. And you can see the preview here. So the tab is right here. This shows you where the machine's lifting up. And the other one's down here. So that's going around a corner, which will make it a little bit harder to clean that up in the end. So those tabs we'd have to manually remove after the cutting's finished, and then that'll leave an area where we have to sand or otherwise clean up when we're done. So that's the basic setup of an inside profiling. I think in the next video we'll look at setting up the outside profiling, the cutout of these parts. Thanks.